Good hygiene.
No, I got 6 feet.
Guys,
We're spread.
you're live.
Okay.
You might want to run a comb through that hair of yours today. Rose, you want to call roll call?
Sure, it's 10:20. Oh, you wanted the pledge first, right?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Call to order, pledge allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mike Ham.
Here.
Diane Eyman is absent with notice. And Rick Jones.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Everybody's been issued a copy of the governance committee meeting from April 30th of 2020. Give you a chance to review.
I had one thing I had to bring up when we were doing the minutes. We realized, sorry Jimmy, our chair
Yes.
had made a motion at the last, Jimmy had made a motion at the last governance meeting, but he was not on governance committee.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to, I checked with council, you just need to reapprove the minutes from the prior meeting.
What was
the December meeting?
Yep, I'll tell you. Rick, you had seconded it, so it was December 4th meeting.
Okay.
It was approved contingent upon review of the audio recording to clarify the verbiage of transmit versus meet in the motion discussed. So it was clarified and it was corrected. And then
What?
we just need to,
The clarification of what?
some verbiage in the minutes. So you guys just need to reapprove
So I'll
those.
make a motion to reapprove the minutes of December 4th, I think it was.
Yes.
Clarifying some of the verbiage in those minutes.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Just a note, the minutes from the April 30th, on the first page, April 30th, 2020 meeting,
Mm-hmm.
it says 2019.
Committee chair.
Thank you.
Just change it to 20. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 30th, 2020 meeting.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Old business.
I just want to say it's a little bit hard because in the original documents, they were printed in color. So I had highlighted them here, on mine, on the compliance.
Mm-hmm.
But then everything is already laid out on each individual sheet. So you don't actually need this first sheet, which is kind of a summary. I do want to say the percentages are better from when we met last governance meeting because a number of projects did turn in their stuff shortly after our governance meeting. So I hate to say only, but only 14% of them now are missing documents.
So that's down significantly from
Yeah.
what it was.
It is down significantly. Yeah. 26% now are underperforming, and I'm unclear if it's 14 or 15. I'll explain why when we get to it. Are out of compliance because, and it's more than what you're looking at here because that includes late fees. So they're out of compliance because they have not paid their late fees. So
The underperforming category, the 26%, is that underperforming with
on
or
jobs,
without the leeway we give them on jobs?
that's with the leeway.
And the leeway
Is
for,
80%. So when we go to each one, you'll be
I
able
got
to
it.
see what their percentage is.
Okay. So the major ones,
Well, you wanna go just outside of Florida, we have to go through them all.
Yeah, let's just go through them. Just have it with the way we have them set up.
Chair, on the methodology. When you say the leeway, is that just granted without any oversight, or do they, why, isn't that easy for somebody to point to all the time? Or just, it's just observing. If someone is gonna have, they have the leeway of 80%, shouldn't they notify us prior to this is gonna be a problem, or no?
I think we're gonna audit when we talk about the labor policy on that with submittal time. Submittal time is pretty wide open, and I think we need to address that with the audit committee on the 24th.
My understanding,
I don't understand what the word leeway means.
Correct.
In connection with reporting.
So if there's
I
supposed,
assumed that it was for the first 3 years of the project is what I always heard.
No.
They get some leeway.
Yeah.
But then when I looked at it, it's like, no, you
there's
have 20.
always.
So I think we should refer it to audit,
Yeah.
as you said, Chair. And we should suggest something like the first year it's 20%, the second year it's 15, the third year it's 10. and
My
after
only
that it's-
concern is that you have notification tied.
Yeah.
The first
First
3
year you
years,
can't.
you don't need
Right.
to do that, because
Sorry?
you don't need to do that the first 3 years, because in everybody's closing documents, almost everybody, they have different numbers for 3 years.
You're right.
So like, I'm gonna use the Kingsley just because it was one I
You
was
don't have
looking
to-
at last night. They were at 24, then 38, then 50, so like, we already do that.
Okay,
So the 80% is just a blanket 80%.
so I'll change my suggestion, Chair, to, I think we should refer to audit to say this is too big,
Yes.
too much. I don't know what the right number is, maybe 5, maybe 10, but even 10, if you have 300, you're expecting 150, we're at 300, and not many have that, but 10% would be 15 to 30 people, that's a big number.
But Joe, will we have problems because of closing documents already saying 80%?
Yeah, I don't think you'll be able to
So it
do
would
it
just be going
retroactively.
forward.
But it'll be one of those things, if anybody comes in for a modification or an assignment, it'll be one of those bites at the apple that we get. But any new project, you could apply.
I think we
I
should
think
get audit.
80% is a lot,
Sure it is.
Yeah.
I think we should get audit too.
especially without reason. You could have, you could be reasonable.
Right.
Well, look, right
Right.
now in the COVID environment,
Right, that's different.
we're not
But
there.
they have to provide a reason. It's not just a blanket 80%.
Okay,
And even that's not that hard to write. You could write a policy that had an exception for, and in my world, this is happening in a lot of contracts and a lot of leases, et cetera, an exception for declared states of emergency, or, you know what I mean? Like, you could
Well,
tie
that's-
it to executive orders and things like that. So, and it does make, it's not punitive, because the idea is if you're 8 years in and you've never been able to comply, hey, we're not breaking your chops. It just turns out you're not the project you said you were. So it's okay, you know what I mean? Pay taxes and go on about your business. You don't have to worry about how many jobs you have.
okay.
So let's go through each and every one of them then, all right?
Albany Med, it's PSH, but if you drove by, you would know it as Albany Med's Emergent Care in Saugerties. They still owe us $1,000 for their late fee. The late fee was disputed. They did send us a letter about it, and to be honest, they had valid points in their letter.
Which one, do you remember?
Yeah, I do. They had asked specific questions that the members of the previous board were, did not answer.
Prior to the anticipated
Prior
date
to
from
the
May.
deadline, prior to the January
So they
31st
asked questions,
deadline.
which is fine.
Yes,
Nobody got back to them, so then
Right.
they were late. Is that true?
yes, it's true,
That is true.
that's true.
Did we ever give them answers to their questions?
We did, but after it was too late.
So have they paid it now, or they still
They
disagree?
won't pay it because they said they have good reason not to, and they gave the dates, and everything in their letter was accurate.
Council?
Well, I think if you,
I have the letters
Yeah.
too.
if the reason they were late is legitimate, then even though you've now answered their questions, certainly an argument can be made that they were never out, they never really were out of compliance, right? That would be a reasonable distinction. And I will say, before you get started on these conversations, just to make clear, there's no question that this committee and the board ultimately have discretion to come to different conclusions on each of these clients. We just need to do exactly what you're doing now, which is to distinguish factually what happened in various cases. So in this one, I think the argument again would be, or it seems to be, that so let me ask you this, Bruce, would they have voted, so we've answered their question, right?
Yeah, they got us the documents after.
And they did get it, okay.
Yes.
So
Do we go after the applicant for non-performance and non-compliance? Yes, we did, don't we?
Yes, we did.
We did perform as a board. Rick, would you concur?
Yeah, I would. And they also still owe us $1,000.
though
Question
they
mark.
did. Well, they did ask us before the January 31st deadline to clarify so that they would be timed.
So no response, they came
Gotcha.
in after the 31st with the information we required.
Okay.
And now they're saying, no harm, no foul.
Fine. They don't know. Fine.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they're doing it.
Okay.
So I have
So-
the letter, I did verify every statement they made in the letter.
Okay. So we'll pass it, they're fine.
Okay. And it makes sense that there was some confusion because we were asking for things they didn't have to do before. Okay, so then that one will be in compliance and I'll let them know about the lease.
And apologize for the confusion and everything else.
Yes, I will. Definitely will. And for welding service. This one is non-compliant for multiple reasons. So it says up top they have 0% of their promise, but that's because they didn't report back with their questionnaire and they didn't get us most of the information we were asking for. I did get their payroll journal on March 28th, and when I looked at it, you can see the additional notes, they still only have 75.8 of the promised jobs. They had 64% the prior year. They would not respond with their certificate of insurance for disability, their bond statement, they didn't pay the CPA fee, and they didn't do the completed questionnaire, and they owe us $1,000.
Meaning they did not respond or would not, like, did they say they would?
They wrote back one time to an email. We did call, we did email, and as you see here, you can see every time we sent certified mailings also. One time with an email, they said, I believe we got you everything, and we wrote back and said, no, you didn't, here's the list, and no response again.
So with it being a bond, what is our avenue to some kind of recapture on the bond?
It's actually essentially the same. I did take a look at Amcor's documents and in bond deals, although you have some other documents that have their own default provisions with respect to the bond, you do still have provisions in your project agreements and your lease agreement, et cetera, that do talk about recapture. So there's no question, it sounds to me, Rose has communicated to me that they've almost, I don't know that they've ever been in compliance.
Yeah.
And they're a little recalcitrant. So I mean, you do have the authority to do everything from terminate to recapture, and certainly the penalties that they owe are live.
Most of their business is down south,
That's the issue.
so I don't think this takes up a lot of their time and,
They didn't get a tax inducement. They got a lower rate of the bond.
Yeah,
right.
So we
because it's
can't
so, it's
recapture
so
it.
old.
That's what I was,
I
with
think
the
the
bond,
most I believe we can do, correct me if I'm
is
wrong,
terminate.
is terminate if they don't have one, and then notify their bank who issued the bond to say they no longer,
nobody wants a bad rating.
they're no longer able to get the cut rate.
What
rate
if-
that they get. That's
what
probably
if-
the only thing.
So when the last correspondence was in March, April?
March 28th.
Okay. What if council, we send them a final letter, okay? Put a sunset on it, give them the same thing we did on our compliance letter. Give them 5 days to get that information at the end of business day. If they don't respond, we move to terminate the bond, notify the bank.
And what do you want to do about the other issue though, that they've not given us the employees they're supposed to do either? Because that they can't obviously come back in 5 days.
No, they need to supply us with all information that is required by this board.
I think the reason why we're raising a flag is that they've just been non-cooperative.
I figured
Received
The
the
sound,
bond.
the number of staff, I understand that they claim they can't find, I don't know.
The number, they
Make everybody
received
raise
the
their
bond, they received the bond and then
Yeah.
opened their Virginia plant shortly after receiving the bond. And they have 100+ workers down there,
So I
and
think
they've
we just
really
simply-
focused on staffing there, not
Simply tell
here.
them they're out of compliance.
That's it.
Induce, what we've done for you is over, and we notify the bank. That's the end.
It's all,
By the way,
it's like a de minimis amount.
I'm not certain they got no sales tax exemption. It seemed to me in the document, and we can check this, look, whatever they got is recaptured,
I
you
just
may
know
be
it
right,
was
but to be clear, I heard two slightly different things. So on the one hand, we are gonna say, you've gotta get us these documents, you're out of compliance, you have this many days to do that.
Joe, you execute that letter and tell them it's by Friday of next week. That's it.
No
Does that
worries,
have to go
what
to
will
the
we
board
say about,
first, or does
I think, I didn't hear, I just wanna be clear, are we saying anything in this letter about the fact that they're non-compliant on jobs that have never been compliant? You know what I mean, are we saying that you get this information in
Yes.
5 days?
They've never been
I see
compliant.
what you're saying, should we bring it in front of the whole board
Well,
on a letter? I don't think we have to.
I don't know you have to, but I know we were sitting here to make our recommendations, so I didn't know if this was
Yeah, I
recommended or
think-
just doing this one.
I think recommendations are fine, I think, right now, this is flagrant at best, and I believe that it needs to be executed immediately.
Okay.
It's already ran its course.
Right.
With non-compliance, and it, like you said, council, they've been out of compliance for quite some time now.
Right.
And they're not getting back to you with the specific information that we need to move on. I say execute the letter, Friday, deadline, they don't have anything.
I would just suggest one thing. I don't think we need to be having discussions. I think it should be automatic letters.
Correct.
Getting sent out, whether it's from governance or the CEO. You're in non-compliance.
Yeah,
Well, we
We're
did,
not not gonna negotiate what has already been negotiated.
we did send them letters telling them they were not compliant,
That's
and then we
fine.
sent the one from the attorney saying you're not
Well,
compliant.
but the difference here is and I wanna be clear, we're gonna give them a letter that says you're gonna comply or
or else,
you're terminated.
Right,
That's
right.
That-
There's
that's
no
it.
options.
Right.
There's no options.
no options.
Okay, so you're going to draft that?
I'll
letter?
draft that, I'll send it to you, you can circulate.
Keep that letter on file, council.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want you to CC the chair of governance on that letter.
Certainly, yeah.
Joe, I think we will need to know what, if anything, can we recapture.
I'll take a look at
Correct.
precisely what their benefits were.
Especially when it refers to a bond.
On their
Okay,
pairs,
and-
on the pairs report, they might have had more than one project, because on this, there is no sales tax exemption or anything else.
Interesting.
It's just the bond,
Because I'm
no
almost
issue.
certain there was a sales tax letter reference
Okay,
to
so
the
let's-
doc, but I'll look, whatever it is, I'll make sure the board
Not
understands.
to change the whole thing upside down, but you know what? The solution to this doesn't start after the fact, it starts prior to.
Yeah.
There's, there's things that can be put in applications, or once you've been cited 2 or 3 times for non-compliance, well, either you create an escrow account that we can draw down from, or whatever the case is, better us holding theirs than them holding ours.
Interesting, yeah.
But where we are right now, the governance has got a good handle on it.
Benedictine, so they're non-compliant, because of their job numbers, and they've been non-compliant with job numbers the last several years. I just looked through the last 3 years. I would assume they're not going to get better, because they're merged with Westchester and merging with Kingston Hospital. The point was to, I'm sure, eliminate jobs and eliminate, I guess, wasted spending.
Mhm.
How many years do we have left in
The bond.
It ends 2021, so it's almost over.
it's almost like,
Did you say worth the squeeze?
and, Benedictine hospitals in this area are
Yeah.
pressed. I think we do need to, at some point, deal with when these large entities, come to us. At some point, they're gonna merge, and they're gonna start cutting staff. And how
They
do
were
we-
bought out. It probably should have come back to us when they
I
were bought out.
think the agreements usually say you can't sell, transfer, et
Yeah,
cetera, et cetera.
But this probably happened a number of times.
Yeah.
What is the fruition date on this? What is it?
When is it
What,
over?
when is it over?
2021.
I think
You know,
because
it's
of the
tough
huge-
right now
I
too.
think because of the huge public benefit they provide, and the fact that it's expiring in 2021.
I wouldn't say they provide a huge public benefit, because they shop their insurances and everything else, and you're dealing on a scale that it's not created for the local business person.
Yeah, good point.
And I think Rose is spot on. I don't know if it increases in the FTEs, only because the current landscape over there with the expansion of the Benedictine property, and whatever they're gonna do on the Kingston campus, on the Kingston site, it's probably gonna transfer jobs over there but not create more jobs. So,
I think it's just a fair warning to us when we deal with these entities, that we anticipate mergers, buyouts, and all that, and somehow we plug that into the,
We don't have to anticipate, because it should have come back to us to be a new project at that time. they can't sell without coming back to us.
When were they taken over?
6. No, when were they taken over by Westchester?
Maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3-4 years ago.
Which raises the question, why didn't the letter go out then?
Is that an issue for us now?
No. There's provisions that say that failure to enforce any provision doesn't waive the right to enforce it for exactly this reason.
So why don't we send a, I suggest we have a letter sent citing the fact that they should have come back to us. And we wanna sit down, we want a response, what they intend to do with this, since they are woefully under.
Yeah, let's get an explanation on
Rather than just let it slide.
That's correct, unless at least you're following through with it and we have documentation on the response.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I can, draft that?
Yeah.
So, we wanna know the why, and then,
Make them aware that
should have come back.
we understand what's going on,
Mhm.
but
Yes.
not answering doesn't answer, it's just foolish.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing, right? In terms of
The word,
sold it,
well, PSH was the same thing, Albany Med was the same issue.
they sold it, never told us.
They sold the operation.
Yeah.
Which means it should have come back to us for a revised project.
I thought it was Cameron that was in there.
Nope, that one did, and it did come back for a revised project.
So, Chair, may I just go back to Albany Med?
Should we tell them
You
the
want
same thing?
Do the same thing.
That they should have come back to
They
us?
have to come back.
And they're almost done also, by the way, it's 2021.
Let me tell you what's gonna happen. You're gonna do that, and you're gonna get a legal action, and you're gonna go in front of a judge, and the judge is gonna say, do you monitor your jurisdiction there? The agreements that you have in place? It's not as though Bobby bought a candy store and sold it to a guy around the corner. I mean, some of the responsibility of this falls on this board.
It absolutely falls on the board no matter of Albany Med. I mean,
So-
we did not respond. I mean, are we going to get into,
I'm just putting it out there.
are we gonna get into a legal battle with Albany Med over $1,000 that we failed,
They
the
were,
board failed to address back at the time?
they were prepared to do that.
And currently on Albany Med also, all the information that we need is current and up to date.
They were prepared to negotiate.
No, they were prepared to bring legal action over $1,000.
Okay,
Yeah, let's
let's leave it.
not poke the bear.
I did tell her on the phone
Mm-hmm.
that it should have come back to us. And I understand that
Um,
they're not physically her employees, but that's part of the agreement, and they have to report. All right, so Central Hudson?
Central
Well,
Hudson.
hold on, so what do we do about Cameron?
No, we're not.
We're not
Cameron.
on that yet.
We're not,
No, we're not there
Cameron's
yet.
not an issue. They're
oh,
not-
I'm sorry,
they're
Rick,
not on.
got out there.
I was mistaken.
So Central Hudson, their issue is that they have 0% of their promise. They never had employees at this location. And then they owe us the $1,000 late fee. The $1,000 late fee, I'll tell you, has been disputed by one of their attorneys. Because they felt they shouldn't have gotten late fee. I have to honestly say, there may be some merit to that, because we kept asking them for employee data, and they were late giving us employee data, but they didn't have employees to report.
It's not that hard to report 0, is it?
Right, but they did tell us 0, but we were pressing for their NYS 45, which was irrelevant, because there's no employees at that site.
So we're asking them for something that doesn't exist.
Yes, that's correct.
So did they forge ahead on the premise that they could utilize their workforce throughout the entire county for
That's
that
what
location?
they say they were told back when they did the project, yeah.
Which,
But that's not in their
True.
closing documents.
It's not true unless it's in writing.
It's not in their
that's
closing documents, it's
very
also,
true.
it's not allowed by the ABO.
Okay. Did they argue that to that point?
They've never formally argued in writing anything that I know of.
Okay.
Because
But
I
they-
brought this
No,
up
via
last year.
email,
but they've made the
No, they
argument,
have.
yeah.
yes. But I do wanna say, this one is important, because project ends in 2024. At the moment, they're receiving a negative benefit. They're paying more in taxes than what they would be assessed at.
Yeah.
So if you did, you can't do a clawback, they're before the time period. If you put them back in the tax roll, it would honestly just be hurting Saugerties and hurting the county.
So how do they wind up paying more?
Because utilities, I guess, often are worried about their assessments going up faster than they would want them to. And in this case, they just wanted to make sure it was set dollar amounts year after year so that they were budgeting properly.
Gotcha.
And so they put in set dollar amounts for each year, except that their assessment has not ever reached that. And they've paid the excess and not come back.
So
Good.
next.
Yep,
So I'll remove the late fee though.
okay, remove the late fee.
Okay.
All right, Gardner Library, Joe, you're up. Did we shut that one down yet? Did we close it out?
So, Gardner Library, I apologize, we should.
They keep sending nasty grams.
Yeah, they did.
Who does?
Gardner Library, they keep getting requests from us and
They had refinanced their bond and not taken us off properly. The bank is at fault. They should never have done that.
They were
But-
dealing with Key Bank.
But when they
Key Bank went forward
requested
and they did the new bond without
Yes.
releasing the
old
lien that we
property,
had.
yeah.
So, okay. Now,
Right, but in the meantime, they did not get us the proper documents for the insurance. And they were late on the rest of the documents we requested. So they do have the $1,000 late fee here.
with the
They're at
project.
66% of their promise, but it's irrelevant that they're at
Yes.
their promise because their project ended
Yeah.
in 2016. So, but the reason they still had to get information to us is because they hadn't closed it out. Now they've actually, when Randall and I went and spoke with their executive director, we explained, you have to close this out. This is what keeps happening if you don't. And now they've reached out multiple times requesting to be closed out.
Or they have to go to the county clerk's office.
No,
You know,
there's other documents that would be drawn up and it can be done through our attorneys or attorneys of their own, I guess.
Yep.
But they've reached out to us about us doing it. Normally what had happened in the past with Joe Scott had sent letters and said, if you want us to do it, it's X amount of money, otherwise you have to get your own attorney to do it. So I
Sure.
sent it to our attorneys asking to please.
Can we send out, I wanna ask the members of governance to consider sending out a checklist every year.
Yeah.
Of things that, you know, please respond that you got this, send out a checklist of things that have to be done, inundate them, so there's, whether it's an email or whatever, but inundate them with information, so no one can turn around and say, well, I didn't know, I didn't get it, whatever.
The
But
issue-
your ignorance
You
is,
currently do that, it's almost,
We did that at the end of the year, we sent it in December asking for an engineer, but I would say, I think you're right, because when I spoke with Dutchess County's IDA, their CFO spends all year getting different documentation from the projects, and she was surprised that we had the late fee, we had late fees because we had to. And she was surprised that we had so many projects that were non-compliant, and I think it makes a real difference to constantly be in their ear.
I just think you have to condition applicants and people who've gotten a benefit. And it's like, you know, myself or Mike with our members, you get people used to something, then so be it. You know, it's not a new way to do things, it's the right way to do things.
And most of the projects that wouldn't send documents are old ones.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
I don't know, just food for thought, Chair.
yeah, on a checklist like that, I think you're hitting it right on the head also because I know in our line of work, you know, we constantly have paperwork trails on contribution reports and it's completely listed.
Document.
Document, and they've even moved it a little bit further to streamline it to online filing to make it that much easier for either the client or the applicant to follow through with the reporting, you know? That's something
There are definitely things we need to be getting from the applicants that we've not asked them for still, that we need to do more on our side. So there's a lot to talk about in audit.
consistency is the key. okay? And if you stay on it, you just have to stay on it. I think moving ahead, you know, I'll reiterate what the chair has said in the past, this board is doing real good things, and, you know, we're looking to keep everything, you know, well in compliance, you know.
Joe, did you find it?
Rose, is it, no, I'm looking at Joe Scott's report on this, is it known by any other name?
I don't have a copy of Joe Scott.
No, but what is it, is this project known by any other name?
No,
on
it's
the
Gardner
card?
Library.
Because,
There's Gardner 1 and Gardner 2.
but he doesn't even have it on his list of projects that aren't closed out.
Why don't we just move to the
Yeah,
next one?
Joe, so you'll
So
follow
I-
through with that, because it is to be closed out. And
Yeah, and the bottom line is this, we could close them all out ourselves. Certainly the applicants would be on the hook for those fees, but we see where we are in chasing them for those fees, so you might be in a position of laying out $1,000 a project
There you go.
to close them out, right? And there are also, I will tell you, throughout the state, there are numerous IDAs that when these things expire, they just stop reporting on them. And I know that your CEO is not comfortable with that, and I understand that, because,
Neither is the ABO.
and then there's the ABO.
That's the problem.
But I think, yes, the simple answer is, there are some of these where special counsel seems to have what they need, got contacted by the county clerk that maybe they needed some adjustments to the documents, and you know, Joe's report is that they need to contact the county clerk to follow up, et cetera. So I'm working with Joe to get them.
Look, even just to get these off of the work ethic that the
Yeah.
CEO does every year, even if it means we have to spend something to get this done.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
they're
the
annoyed now too, because they're also paying us an annual fee. Because now we have an annual fee. They don't wanna be on
Right,
this
and
anymore.
the administrative effort that we're putting into chasing this is
And part of the
clearly
issue
3
is
times.
they're
what
gonna
we're-
have an annual, they have the annual fee this year, they're gonna have a CPA fee for this year, and we have to get reporting from them before it's all finally closed out this year, because I'm not gonna ask them in January and have them not respond like some of these other ones also. So we just need, we need to have it closed out.
So you gotta find out where.
Okay.
And we're gonna leave the late fee, or,
That-
and you're missing the documents that didn't,
Look,
How
it
do
should
you,
have been closed down 4 years ago.
how do we assess
they
the,
didn't do it though.
okay,
This one wasn't on us.
Right.
There
It
were
was on
other
there.
ones
It
that
was on
were,
that
that are not on here for that reason, yeah, this was on them. And they only started asking to be closed out after I came to them and said, you're gonna have an annual fee every year, you're going to have these reporting requirements every year, you have to do it, and then they realized.
okay, so we didn't close it out in time. At the same time, they didn't close it out in time prior to that to assess the fee. Therefore, the fee is probably legit, more than likely legit,
because
plus
they have
we need to
keep
close out.
reporting.
okay? So, yeah, request the fee.
Keith and Joe E is going to work on closing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, these have traditionally been on Joe Scott's plate. I know that they've done a lot of work toward getting them done. I also know that there's some unfinished work, and I'll grind her about that.
Okay, Holiday Inn Express in Lake Katrine, 72.6% of the FTEs. The prior years were 78.5 and 66.49. He, I know, had sent emails to us asking for us to change his assessment, which is clearly not something we can do, because he said that business was not as strong as he anticipated. But I think this is a problem because
But that,
you can't promise 27 FTEs.
but that's
enough.
impossible, because
Oh, 'cause
every hotel that
Building
comes
more
here says
hotels,
that they're
yeah.
booked solid every single
I
day.
know. But it's a fairly small hotel. I don't know how he would have had
Yeah.
27 FTEs.
I don't know, but, and that's on,
And that's
the
going
actual
until
FTEs are on
2026.
verification from the CPA.
Yeah, the actual is it's pretty close. He wasn't far off
Okay.
what he reported, but yeah, and the percent of the promise is based on the actual FTEs. So every year he's not had the jobs promised.
Mm-hmm.
He received the benefits because of the right. I mean, not just because of the
Yeah,
jobs.
and-
There was
and-
more to it. But
And you know, in defense of this also, we've got a site, when was the last site visit, I'm sorry? December of 2019?
I did not have a site visit, he wouldn't respond.
No response.
So this, there were only one or two that I couldn't get, I think this was the only one of a current project that would not respond for a site visit.
Because the new argument is going to be COVID-19. Of course, the numbers are down. Nobody's frequent the hotels.
Right.
Hotels.
There
Or,
was certainly no COVID in 17, 18, and 19.
no, I agree. This is where this committee is going to have to be vigilant, moving ahead, and stay on top of whatever. We can't wait 2 and 3 years to start addressing past issues that we should have been addressing compliance.
Well, he started in 15,
Mhm.
so 15, 16,
16,
17, and it was the end of 15. So I think if anything, it should have been addressed with 18, but you
Should have
didn't have staff.
Yeah.
When that happens, I don't think you're that far behind on this one, to be honest.
No, it's not.
And
It's
the
not
fact I-
horrible. I'd like to see what the current numbers are.
Yeah.
I
I'm
know.
not gonna be able to.
I know that. I
No response for a site visit is
You know,
really
you
unacceptable.
can kiss 2020 report.
Yeah.
And probably 2021's
Well,
report.
yes and no, I have to tell you, I don't personally disagree, but I will tell you was it the comptroller or ADL, one of them, said that that's not a good enough excuse. You have to reach out to each project
I believe
and
that's
talk
correct.
to them.
We need to send a letter. We
We
also
need to
need
talk
to,
to
we need
them
to get
now.
letters back out to them requesting the information.
So let's do this.
And we have to stay on top of it. Once again,
Well, okay, so what do you wanna say to him, because
Cite
they
the
sent
fact.
their information, they just didn't do the site visit
Cite the fact that in 16, 17, and 18, they were out of compliance
every year.
every year. And, he received X amount of inducement,
correct.
sales tax and mortgage tax, he got both of those.
Yeah.
And,
Because of the
we wanna know what his plan is moving ahead. And we reserve, something to the effect that we reserve the right to shut down the pilot.
Well, yeah, at least clawback,
Yeah, he has a clawback.
Yes, he does.
Sure
Yeah, in
does.
15 he does.
So,
So,
okay.
yes, you want me to write that
Yes.
one? I'll talk to John.
I
Michelle
think-
and say,
I don't wanna project anything, but if he turns around and never responds to us, then I think we just have to say the pilot's over this one. You gotta respond to us and work with us.
So same thing, we'll put a deadline in there.
Yeah, you know what, we generated that one nice letter out there. I wonder if we could almost utilize that to him. A letter of, this non-compliance is to be resolved by the close of business day on such and such. The resolution may be accomplished by mailing, faxing, or emailing to the CEO, at the address below. Failure to comply may result in the issuance of the clawback provisions.
The commencement of termination.
That's correct. And or the termination.
So
of-
what
right.
date would you like them to reply by?
Once again, let's, listen, shorter is better, put their hand on the fire. If you can get that letter out, what's today? Today is,
What, Tuesday?
Tuesday. If we can get it out and have it by Friday of next week, business day
Friday next week.
Next week.
of next week, correct?
That's what I had.
Yeah.
I would add to that, in addition to all the verbiage you mentioned, Jim, is, at the very least, we wanna hear from you what your plan for addressing this is.
Correct, contact.
He's
Yeah.
not gonna increase the number of staff, that's for sure.
I prefer something on paper as opposed to them just calling,
Sure.
okay? And let's
Okay,
find
so
them
we're
to
gonna
it.
send that from the governance
Yes.
committee?
Yes, just like we did
From,
the other one.
okay, yeah. Okay. Holiday Inn Express Socrates.
I want you to CC the rest of the board on that.
Mm-hmm. I believe so. I think the rest of the board should be
The whole
CC
board.
on that,
Okay.
yes.
BCC, be nice, because I don't want your email addresses now, right?
Too late, they're already out there.
Well, we could put on the CC just that piece.
The name, yeah, okay, I
Yeah,
could forward it afterwards, or just BCC, there you go, but, Holiday Inn Express Socrates. The
Yeah.
percent of the promise is not correct, that was based on the number they reported.
Mm-hmm.
So that, when I looked at it, because we didn't have the information in time for the CPA to do it, it wasn't received until after the governance meeting, the payroll journal. So I verified it, it's 13.26, they're still above the FTE's promise. And the way I did it though, I wanted to just be clear, they were only open for the fourth quarter. So I said 1 quarter of 1820,
Mhm.
and that's how I came up with the
Okay.
FTEs, because you can't
So they
They
were
weren't
okay.
done with construction.
They're okay.
The only issue is they still owe the late fee, and they do owe it.
They do
Because
owe it.
Like I said, we reported to parents and everything without having their information.
So
So
we
what do you,
send them a
so the
reminder.
late fee, if it's not paid, then they're subject to clawback as well.
Correct. Once again,
Late fee. Or clawback. Okay. And, and we can explain too in the letter, it's not, obviously we know the $1,000 isn't meant to be punitive. It's, we have reporting that we didn't have the correct information on our repairs report. Because they were
It's not
so
like
late
one
getting
morning
to us.
we woke up and
It's
said,
not
oh,
okay.
we have to have the reports today.
No,
no.
and
What
I hand delivered it to him and spoke with him about it at the site visit.
So that would be the 14th. All these letters will.
Yep.
Okay.
Respond.
You okay with this?
I am,
These letters getting out by the 14th?
yes.
JBT Wolf Tech, their issues were, the payroll journal came in after CPA verification.
Mm-hmm.
I verified it, they actually had I think 110
Okay,
at
they're
least,
above.
so they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Their late fee is still due, they're still missing their certificate of insurance for disability.
Okay, that's a must.
So we want their information and the late fee
How
by
long
the
has that,
14th,
the certificate for disability been missing? How long? Since,
January 31st.
oh, just of this year?
We've not asked every other year, or double, or gone back to say you need to give it to us.
Every year,
Every year.
that and comp.
Yes, and compass, yes, right.
It's on the list, they're supposed to send it, yeah.
Okay,
So we want this and by the 14th, right?
that's correct.
They're not subject to clawback because it's 2012, but
Right.
we could put them back in the tax roll until
The other people that you should notify that is all the taxing jurisdictions. They haven't turned in, they're non-compliant.
2020.
Let all the taxing jurisdictions know.
Should we CC them on the letters that
Why
we're
not?
sending?
Absolutely.
You know what?
That's a
People
good idea.
hate like hell to be thought of as not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's real easy, do what you're supposed to do, right?
And I'm sorry, that was which project I was making a joke on?
JBT, yeah.
JBT did.
So it's the 14th, we want the late fee, the disability, same thing, they'll go back on the tax roll, no clawback. This one is extremely old. Northeast Center, there's a $1,000 late fee, it's the
Did you
only thing
skip,
to do at this point, what?
Did you skip the federal credit union?
No, not yet.
No, you're looking at the old
Yeah.
the old packet,
Gotcha.
there was nothing, they reported back to us and are no longer non-compliant.
Yeah, she got the updated one. So.
Because they sent their late fee, they gave us everything we asked for, so they're compliant now. Northeast Center for Rehab, I wanna also say about these late fees, if you remember correctly, there are 3 steps for the late fees, the $1,000 is the highest one. We did not send them late fees for anything until it was at the very last point of too far. So I didn't send anybody a late fee for $250 or $500. We waited until they went way too far with getting us information.
There.
You had been notifying them all along.
Absolutely we did, and you can see here the dates. I met with the administrator myself on the 20th, and it was the actual administrator, it wasn't just somebody appointed. And then, 20th, we sent it to them. The 1st, I met with them, the 2nd, we met with them. Then on March 3rd, we sent the late fee with return receipt. And then on April 13th, council sent a letter saying you have to do this or, and they still didn't comply.
No, I don't know.
So it's the late fee by the 14th also.
Yeah.
This is a bond and note issuance one, Joe. So otherwise, what? It's not that they go back on the tax roll, it's that they have to pay back their,
Yeah,
but they have to get us
Well,
their
for
information.
$1,000, they're not gonna let this, they're not gonna want to lose the bond.
No.
It was so many times we went back and forth with the information. I
So
can
just
tell
send them a letter
These
similar
aren't
to
all
what
the
we're
dates
doing
we
with,
talked about.
Jerry, any thoughts?
with the bond.
Yep.
Afterwards.
And the reason they're that far over compliance is because it was from 1998.
I know.
And I know one thing, in the beginning, to set the tone, I think you have to be consistent as to what you do. after that, then you could have,
Yeah.
why is my reason not as important as his?
Okay, let's send,
Late fee by the 14th,
that's correct. Follow through, stick to the script.
or bond, what is it called, Joe, what's the word?
It's got, I'll let you know, because there's
Okay.
actually more than one thing that would unwind it. I'll get
Okay.
to the-
Okay, so the next one is Pods Marlboro. This is the one I was saying, I don't really know what to say about their compliance. So if you read the notes, I'll just let you read the notes.
Al Lanzetta said it's okay.
And you want 11 and 2, 15, closing documents, promise.
Yeah. Originally, yes.
Has it been altered?
No. That's happened a number of times. And it's something that, the state has noticed as well.
Okay.
So we never,
God bless you.
So they are compliant based on their closing documents. They're not compliant
Based on their application.
based on the application, but it was my understanding, talking to Joe Ariel, that we would have to go by their closing documents, and there's no way to fix that unless they agree to it.
Unless they agree.
Which they're not going to, obviously, right?
So they could type them.
Yeah, I mean,
I think you gotta let it go. Their legal document is
I
the
know,
ruling document.
I know, but
Correct.
it's just,
The
it was
application,
brought to my attention by,
That's why it's so important that these applications be complete.
it is why, you're right, it is.
Extremely.
It is,
And
because-
what's on the application winds up in the legal document.
It's also, it's
Let
a.
me ask you a question, why are we accepting applications that aren't complete? And that's rhetorical. I think everyone knows the answer, so stop accepting applications that are
Yes.
complete. When people scream about wanting to get on the agenda, you do your part, we'll do our part.
I agree.
I agree.
Fortunately, this application wasn't, but,
Okay, so the late fee that's been assessed.
they paid it now.
Okay.
So
Alright,
good
so
point.
then it is
Good.
compliant, and we'll just
Yes.
move on, I just wanted to
Okay.
explain the issue then. Star Estate, this is something that we need to talk about at audit, because the project never had 2 FTEs. The reason its FTEs were promised as 2 is because it was saying they started with 2. They did not start with 2, they've never had employees ever, they've never registered for payroll ever. So it's something that when somebody comes in and says, I have X number of employees, we have to verify it, because otherwise it just creates a problem moving forward. And it's happened with another project as well. So they're at 0%, but that's because they shouldn't have said they had any, and they're still very much under construction, if you're familiar with it.
So they're only in the first 3 years.
Yeah, it's not at all together yet.
Okay.
I walked it, and it was like, I'd be careful walking it, construction site, The greenhouses. My understanding, based on my site visit in December,
I'm very sorry, so just on Star State for now, we're
there's
gonna.
nothing to do,
Yeah.
right, yeah. They're brand new. They
Right.
closed last year. It's that there was a problem, their application was wrong.
Got it.
And we should have,
We
we need to verify those things. So greenhouses, my understanding when I met with, I think it was the manager, she wasn't an owner, with greenhouses, the reason their employment was down so much is because they cut their kitchen staff. They had a kitchen that was like preparing meals for the people staying on the property. They're not doing that anymore. So it's just going to be a wedding venue that or I say wedding venue, but event venue, whatever. And so that's why their staff is
So this has nothing to do with COVID.
no.
They made a decision to.
This is
practical
pre-COVID, this
decision.
was in
To change what they're gonna do, how they're gonna make it
But we
work.
also didn't verify any team, right? CPA didn't verify any team, so their 15 FTEs and 18 might not even have been correct, I don't know.
This is also the project, not that it matters, but this is a project that got a gimme from the board 2 years ago, I believe, or 3 years ago, where they didn't have to pay the application fee, or rather the
They got to pay installments.
installments
we're
to
late
the
on the
closing fee of
That's correct.
$26,000, whatever it was.
Yeah.
and I had to chase them last year.
Yeah, to get the rest of the closing date.
All right, so what information is
There's
outstanding?
no missing information, it's
They're
just,
out of compliance.
they're not out of compliance because of the job.
Okay.
So this is a question of potential clawback.
Well, it's the same thing as with the hotel though.
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean, the hotel?
The Lake Katrine Holiday Inn. They have their documents in, they just are out of compliance with their
No, but I'm saying,
documents.
do you wanna do
So,
something?
and we're sending
Yeah.
them cease and desist.
Yeah, so what, you wanna send the same letter of what's your plan to to rectify this. You got the inducement based on these facts and that's not what you're doing, right?
Correct. Got the inducements and then changed the model
HI Express Lake Katrine.
after the fact.
Well, is this a 15-year pilot?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, let me just project what might happen. If you remember our old chart, if it was under 6 employees, you got nothing. Between 6 and 11, you got the first, and then over 11, you got the next.
Yeah, they
Correct.
needed
That's
it to
gonna
get to
redefine the
15.
pilot itself.
This thing is going to wind up being, potentially, this project may not go over the 8. That puts them in that second grouping,
That's why they have it.
which gives them a 10-year pilot, but it
Right.
starts at 50%.
Well, yeah.
So I'm just saying,
So that's an option too, you could move it to 10 years,
that's exactly what's
or
gonna
you
happen.
could just do a clawback entirely because they're not doing what they're.
Well, I don't wanna
So-
put these guys out
Right,
of
I know,
business.
so, but I'm just saying, that's a
And
good
the
point.
same for the hotel, they're gonna be the same, I think, same bucket. You turn out having a 10-year pilot, but it's cut in half, the pilot's cut in half, it starts at 50%, 45, 40, over 10
So is
years.
that something, so if they don't comply, then
We
that's
have to
something we
decide.
can revisit.
Yeah, I mean,
That's,
part of their responsive plan, and frankly, it's extremely sensitive in the
It
current
is.
climate, right? It's that you certainly could argue that the IDA is doing everything they can to
But
keep
that's
the
not,
project
that's
on.
not what they're saying the problem is due to.
No, I understand,
Right.
what I'm saying though is just in terms of the IDA trying to
Yeah,
keep
we're trying
projects
to be
vital,
reasonable.
it would be, they'd come back in before the board, and they'd renegotiate their benefits based on the renegotiation of their jobs.
When you guys review these letters, my recommendation would be, is to urgently come in. Yeah, we want something ready.
Yeah.
But to sit down with us. This is certainly one case where.
who's us?
Initially, you and the own attorney, I think, and maybe the chair of the governance.
Yeah.
Because greenhouse, you're not gonna turn around to the potential. and
Yeah,
say,
because Rick is right on point, you know, with that, and if they're gonna change the way they're gonna do business, it actually creates a new category 2 on the pilot.
Right.
Yep.
If they had come to us with 8 originally, we still might have done the pilot, but only for 10 years, at a reduced
Right.
amount. Well, that's where they're at right now.
Yeah.
That's a solution.
It's actually, it's a really solid, equitable solution, if you're interested.
Now, they may not like it.
It's really
It's a
interesting,
solution.
I really, yeah.
Because the alternative
No, of
is
course
potential
not, I
clawback.
like it, but what's the other option?
Well,
They use all-
the option is, like Joe's stating right now, is the
Yeah.
clawback provision on where we drive back to Rick's point, you don't wanna put them out of
Right,
business.
exactly, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So you're
Right.
working with them as per what our UTEP demands.
Work
Right.
at the time.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think I like that idea.
I
And that
think
is
the
a
same,
good idea to, again, not.
So-
same thing goes for that hotel, the Holiday
Right,
Inn
right,
Express.
not trying to be punitive, just trying to be fair.
We
Not
probably
that
should bring them back in here.
So the same thing for Holiday Inn and
Express, yeah.
anybody that's under the percentage.
We have a solution
We do have a solution without,
without really.
Yeah. so we're trying to
Do
get
we
it.
wanna wait and hear what their plan is, like maybe, I'm making this up, okay? If they said it was an off
You
year,
know what?
because
you know
this
what?
was their first year, or do we not, they just
No,
need to
it's
come
not
back and
off.
say you have to fix
Listen,
it?
I
Below
think before we put the cart in front of the horse, maybe what we should do is stick to what we're doing with these letters, okay, by the 14th. And then we'll get responses from everybody,
Right.
and then we'll bring them in.
Bring them in
What our
after that?
solution could
And
be.
if you give them the
Yeah.
hard,
Give
them
'em-
the hard line,
Give them the shot.
that might prompt the phone
Bring 'em
call,
in.
and then you say, all right, come on in.
Let's keep it clean right now.
This isn't gonna be one and done.
No, it's
This is
not.
gonna be a discussion.
No, it's not.
And
So once
these are
again,
people that have invested in the community, trying to do the right thing. And the worst thing they could do is to try to bomb and weave with us, sit down and talk to us.
You walk away from your responsibility.
no,
Okay.
Sit with us and we'll try to.
same
work.
thing, Rose.
Okay.
So that's why I think, you know, early on I talked about, just an aside, I apologize, Chair, is this whole mentoring process. And I don't know where the hell that is at this point, but it should move forward because you're gonna take some of these, you know, people are more want to speak to somebody unofficially, whatever, and get some help. And, you know, with all due respect to counsel, if they're not paying for it with their own lawyers or taking a shot and throwing it out there and going, well, what are they gonna do to me? Well, guess what? Today it's a nice letter, you know, which is why it's important, whether it's going through governance or whatever, to get this thing up and going and address all these shortcomings that seem to have happened over the last X amount of years. You can't be taken seriously if you're not doing the thing, and you can't ask people to be in compliance if your house is untidy, correct?
Correct.
So I think we should shoot to get our own house in compliance.
Here's the, Jimmy just made me think of another issue. If we did, although it sounded, at first it was like, that's a great idea, if we did change those documents and make them a 10-year pilot, who's gonna pay for the attorney to do that?
We'll cross that bridge when it gets there.
Yeah.
Because all the documents.
But that's a real issue.
I think that's a discussion to have at a later date. Let's
My-
keep to what we're
off the
doing
top
here
of
and
my
get through
head,
this.
so all you're changing is 1 or 2 paragraphs in the document, really. You're just changing the term of the document and what's required for each year in that
It's
document.
still gonna be several $1,000s.
All right, so then we cross that bridge when we
Well,
get there.
right, I mean, again, remember, they're getting a benefit because the alternative is
They're
going
gonna pay
back,
for it.
right? I mean, it's
They are
a
gonna pay.
conversation.
They're gonna pay for it. We're not gonna pay for it. They're changing their pilot
Let's-
program,
let's-
they're gonna pay for
When we get there, we'll deal with that then.
Yes. But
All right,
let's
objective
get
is
the letter
not to
from
go back.
The next one is the Kingsley.
Mhm.
Their same issue, obviously their issue is that they're still very much under construction. And when I did the site visits, I think only one of the locations was, only one of the locations was completed. The main location.
Yes.
And most of these employees are at the restaurant. Some of their other locations though don't have employees at all because they report back to the main building, which is the
So they're
Kingsley.
using that as a barn. Yeah. that's what
Yeah, it's literally, they were gonna use an app for people to check in at the other location. I know they were looking at like a gym in one of them, but I don't think there's an employee for that, so I'm not sure what the reason, maybe they weren't open the entire year, that might have been it. It's the first year, I know we continue to extend their sales tax.
Weren't they just in here not long ago?
Yeah, because the sales tax and the tax credit suffers. So, but they're out of compliance based on the number of FTEs.
You seem to be the committee of letters today.
So do you
it.
wanna,
What do you do now? You're saving trouble later on.
Yeah. And that's what we need to do.
so the same thing as the other one?
Correct.
Okay.
You know, as Jimmy clearly stated before, you know, this is something that we're doing to get our house in order to proceed ahead, to keep everything in compliance,
Changing the culture, Mike.
moving ahead. That's exactly it.
Hopefully we don't have to have this again year after
No,
year.
but-
No, but-
It's this year.
Nobody gets treated any differently than anyone
Nope.
else.
Yeah, absolutely. Kingston Medical Properties, it's slightly under, but can you read the additional note, please?
So the submitted application,
Had no
Had none.
information, but that's because they were carrying it over from the prior project. If you did a percentage of 57, it would be sorely out of compliance as opposed to just, half, a quarter of a percent. But again, the closing documents say 51.
Can't we ask, you asked for New York State 45s, so didn't you?
we need to get them, because we don't have something good in place, because they have 5 or 6 different tenants.
Well, they have to ask for those.
But we don't have a policy that says that, that's the issue.
We
So,
need a policy to ask for the documents that we need to check their
Well,
compliance.
take for instance a guy who, let's not name anything, but theoretically says, well, he's gonna be responsible, he's gonna tie his job creation to the tenant spaces.
Yeah.
Well, at that point, now we have something in place moving forward.
we need to do it, so we have something in place, because if you have multiple tenants, then unfortunately you're gonna have to report on multiple tenants. And then the other issue is, we would also have to, it's something to deal with in audit, which is why we were saying with the policies, the fee schedule guidelines go back. Maybe their annual fee is higher because it's 5, 6 times the amount of work, because it's 5 or 6 employers, not just one, so
Well, then that
something to
becomes
think
a
about that.
deviated pilot automatically, because
Right.
it's not a standard pilot at that point. If you are electing to, take the onus on and lay it on your shoulders to get a benefit, well, then, you're gonna bear the increased costs but it is deviated. It's not typical.
What does the ABO say about these?
No, this is allowed.
It's allowed.
It's allowed as long as the board allowed it. So, and which you did, so it's allowed, it's totally fine, but the issue here was, the number of FTEs based on the closing documents or the old documents. And then also, they're only slightly underperforming if you go by their actual closing documents.
I've also talked with Rose about going forward, having our documents require that where people are claiming job generation among tenants, which is allowed and frankly is part of economic development, as we all know, right? Their leases must include a provision that requires their tenants to provide them the information they need, because the
Yes,
complaint
that's right.
that our project's sponsor is making is, hey, I gotta chase all these tenants, and the answer is, yes, you do. And you should have put it in your agreement that they were
Well,
gonna.
correct me if I'm wrong, but when they approached this whole board at one time, they turned around and they said, well, we're not sure of that because we're not actually doing any of the hiring. And you remember, Jimmy, you were discussing it with them and you said, yeah, but at the end of the day, you're responsible for reporting everybody's activity in that building.
How they write their lease agreements is up to them.
Correct.
The only thing we care about is them being able to report back to us.
Right. If
And whatever
you're doing the
information
job,
we
you gotta
need
report
to.
it.
And they were by the time they left here, they were totally in agreement with that. They agreed 100%.
It took them forever to get to the point.
It did.
Because they didn't want to do that.
That's correct.
And we told them that you're not getting it.
So, they fully understand what their responsibility here is. If we have to go back and pull up the minutes to that meeting, we would know it.
I'm sure that's true, but we just don't, we should have something in writing that clearly just says, if you have tenants, you have to do all the
No,
tenants.
you wanna know something, and we'll bring a multiple tenant policy back to audit, and then we'll bring
Yeah,
it
that's all
back
I'm
in.
saying.
You have to take a
Absolutely.
look at, go backwards, and ABO allows it, but ask ABO for determination of some precedents that were set as far as information collection. We can change it in our written documents moving forward, but we can't grandfather them into having to do
No,
that.
That's right.
So what we need to get is a determination or case precedent from ABO regarding that, so we can hang it on them.
Yeah, cause that's a little loose, as long as it's allowed by the ABO if we allow it.
It is.
But you know what we wanna
Which
see, Mike? We
We
wanna
were at
see,
fault.
well, we don't have a written policy, but what we
Correct.
wanna see is where it's happened prior and how they've dealt with documenting FTEs. What's the acceptable practice?
That's a good point.
Yeah, and
So
I know
Rose,
our
they-
documents are written, that we can always come back and ask for more if
Yeah.
rules change too, so
Sure.
I know we've had that
That'll be
discussion
a good
before.
policy.
But I still think,
What's gonna open it
just
up?
make it
Yeah.
clear, but it makes it clear, why not just let them know what we want?
Right.
And then there's no question, it's a policy,
No, that's
sorry.
correct.
Okay.
That's all. So anyway, they're fairly out of compliance, 79.76 is really, that's 80%,
You're on
right?
Kingston Medical Properties.
Yeah, and their issue was, they had 2 vacant offices in that building.
And you did get it verified by the CPA as finalized, or you did those numbers?
No, I did. No,
Okay.
let me rephrase that. No, we don't have anything that tells them how to get us the payroll journals, they sent me their figures. It was not verified. Yes, and I did say, I was unable to verify from each tenant, because we don't have the payroll documents from each tenant.
Yeah, right, because you're dealing with the multiple.
See, I would almost, and, okay, they're close enough, 79. I would almost send them a letter and say, regardless of the fact that it's not in your contract, we want you to go get the info.
He
from the
needs to do
tenants,
the legwork.
period.
Yeah.
Even though we don't have a policy, even though it's not in there. Well, because the fact of the matter is that was going nowhere until I remember sitting in a meeting saying, you have to do the work, not us.
It is your responsibility.
So I would go back to them and simply say, we want the NYS 45s from each of your tenants.
Yeah,
All
as
he's
per
gotta do
as
is
per
what's
our
inside those
conversations.
contractual
And then let
documents,
him
right?
come back to us and say, we're not gonna get it for you. It's like,
And then we'll move
really?
from there. That letter will have to be a little
Okay.
different.
No, you send it in and
If you
say,
remember
or
all
as a
the-
good
So
faith
you
gesture.
want the COI, you want the certificates
Because
of
if it's not his
insurance.
contractual and his closing documents, then he doesn't have to do anything.
We
No,
want
he-
everything. We want the COI.
But you're allowed to come back and ask. for
There's no policy binding it, so ask for it.
It would be
Yeah.
nice to have a
Let's ask
policy,
for
but in the absence of it, we have the right to ask
You
for it.
want the certificates of insurance, the payroll journals, and the NYS
Exactly.
45s for all employees.
Yeah, and yeah, respectfully request that information. You know? Then we'll see what
They
they're.
were flying people up from Atlanta, I remember, in order to meet with us. Do you remember that? Wherever the hell the group was from, they were from out of state, they were, had all
We did
sorts
go
of.
back and forth several times on this with them already.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I feel like
But
I'm beating a dead horse. And the prior chair and council
Mhm.
just said that because we don't have the policy, that instead of keep pushing at them, that we would accept what they would send us.
There's a silver lining in this whole conversation we're having on this. It will be moving into audit with a multiple tenant policy.
Let's try it again anyway.
Yeah, you gotta put it out there, you gotta request it. We don't have to demand it.
Because I think that the document is broad enough, the legal document's broad enough that
I
we
know, I
can ask
just
for
hate
additional.
that we already told them we didn't need it. We already told
Well,
them
I'd
we
like to
didn't.
see that in writing. If they have that in writing, that's.
When-
No, we told them.
I'd like to see it in
No,
writing.
I can show you, it's an email that I sent.
How long ago?
That's what I'm trying to say. After the reporting for this, in April, in March,
Of
I
this year.
said, because
Well-
I was instructed to do so by council and our chair, that they
Not that
didn't, that you advised that we didn't have to do it.
On
That we
the,
didn't have to have
Right.
those documents for every employer. So then, based on that, the prior chair told me to send them, that we didn't need, this is all we needed.
As per the new board, we respectfully request.
Okay.
See where that goes.
Okay.
But we need a policy.
No casting shade. We'll get that on the 24th.
Okay. And what date, did you wanna give them a date, I guess?
You know what? Widen the berth on that a little bit with them,
Do you
maybe.
wanna go over
They
the
could be-
calendar?
Why don't you go just prior to the audit committee
Which
date?
is
So
the
the-
24th, I think.
Yeah, so maybe by the 20th, 22nd.
The 21st is the Friday.
Okay, how about by the 21st?
Monday is the 24th, which is fine.
So let's go by the 24th, 21st, see if we can get that in 2 weeks' time.
111 Mary's Ave, that's, okay, so it's the same property.
Same thing, right?
But these are the old owners, and when they closed and transferred,
They
they
still owe
washed
us.
their hands and they owe us everything. They didn't submit anything. I can't find a mailing address for them.
No boy.
We've had mail sent back, we've tried calling, we've tried everything. I've
And
had
that's
emails sent back.
ARHC.
Yes. They have the same attorneys though, I found that out, as Kingston Medical Property.
Okay, council, can you contact their attorneys and see where we can
So
go with
that's
this?
Bob Murray,
Yeah,
Robert
if you
Robert
send
Murray.
it to their lawyers, they have an obligation, they're not gonna let
Yeah,
you
and
sit.
you wanna know something,
Yeah.
Robert Murray was very good to deal with the last time. I mean, actually, when he came in to meet with us, didn't he?
over Kingston Medical.
They already sent their late fee check, was in the mail to us.
Yeah, he deals with a lot of
So-
IDAs, he knows,
Yeah.
he's also counsel for IDAs, so he knows what we have to report.
Mhm.
I think he's.
Yeah, but Joe can probably hook up with him,
Mhm.
see what we can get going. You know how that club goes,
Yeah,
they don't wanna speak to the rest of us.
and that one, anything specific about that demand, so to speak?
They didn't send us anything, and they owe us
So it's the
$1,000.
14th, in other words.
It's their final recording,
Right.
they have to send us what we
Yeah.
asked for.
So what do we report to the APO? Nothing?
0, yeah. Have no choice. Made it through, guys.
Entertainment,
On to
the UTEP.
the revised UTEP. We just wanted to go through, Joe, this is the copy that Joe Ariel sent me back, because he went through and just made sure we had everything that matched our current policies. And if there was anything that came out here. I was just looking at, but I see you had changed it, and I just wanted to, on page 30, I was a little, it says employee workforce housing and or senior housing projects, but then you define senior housing projects and changed that definition to match our, policy, so I thought it made sense. The
Yeah,
definition
thank
is
you.
down below at the bottom of the page.
Yep.
So, everything here looks good, the only thing I noticed that is the last page of it, so our page 33. Obviously, we'll change the reaffirmed date, but then it says in here, the administrative director shall be responsible for conducting an annual review. That was back when economic development was doing it, so we don't have an administrative
So we
director.
can change it over.
So just change it to CEO, I think,
Yes.
right? It's not something that you need to have, like,
Yeah, no.
it's just a small wording change.
I'm gonna make Rick the administrative director.
Works
There
for
you
me.
go.
That'll learn him.
You know, what you could actually say there, so that we don't go through this again, I mean, I don't know why we changed the title, but what if we didn't have an acting CEO? You could change
We
that.
have to have, yeah.
No, but what I'm saying is, let's say for 6 months, you were on a leave or something.
I get hit by a bus.
Just say,
Or designate.
just say the agency,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that's,
well, it says who is responsible, that's what we were trying to clarify here.
yeah.
Who in the agency is responsible?
Well, so
for-
look, you could put CEO, because
CEO,
there'll always
or
be
you
an
could
acting
say,
CEO
or
at any time.
designated something, right?
Or designate.
Or designate.
Yeah.
CEO or
There you
designate.
I just like things that don't have to be changed every time some fact changes on.
Yeah, like our address and our bylaws.
Right, exactly,
Like that.
right. Okay, folks will amend the bylaws.
So is this something, I know it's just a really small verbiage, does this have to go to the board
I
or no?
think so. It's already been approved, right? Like,
Yeah.
really.
The UTEP,
It's just-
yes, but
yeah.
it's just this really small.
No, I think this is a sort of a,
That's
No,
okay.
but I think it would be a
Sure.
good idea just to bring it up and ask for concurrence.
We should bring it, yeah, we should bring it up at the board.
Okay.
Chair can bring that up at the board.
Or-
So,
Alright.
Is it here in governance?
yeah,
Well, then you can do it under governance.
Not the note here.
I'll put that in my notes.
It pulled me back in.
So then, new business?
New business. Okay, so we've already, we're discussing the review of all the policies, the current policies we have in here. There are about 9 or 10 that are pretty much marked that have to go back to audit before we can even start discussing. There's a long list here in front of us. We will not get through it today. We have several that we want to discuss that have been out there.
I think we could even go out for order for what's available.
Well, yeah.
Which ones are we sending to board? Can you just?
Oh, okay, send into audit, okay. Number 2, background check policies, code of ethics, enforcement of agency project policy, fee schedule guideline, investment and deposit, local construction labor policy, a policy respecting the UTEP, okay? Yeah, the evaluation of projects, procurement, and travel and discretionary funds policy.
And then the UTEP is irrelevant.
Yes, that is irrelevant.
That issue that we talked about before with the card,
Yes,
that could be under discretionary fund policy.
that could.
Yes.
Yes.
Should we mention that formally now? The card,
Do you wanna wait until we can kick it around the 24th?
Yeah, but I'm saying, yeah, I
We can
don't-
discuss it here now and
well, just to put it on the record.
yeah, we can put it on the record.
I'm not sure if there's anybody else who's a lot more educated than I can tell me, but the modus operandi of doing business here, standard operating procedure, however you want to put it, I don't know if there's anything that precludes a card in a public board. I don't believe there is, so it's part of what we do, and we can just added into the discretionary. You know, I mean, we certainly bring it up to the rest of the board, but I don't think we have to create another policy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what we're talking about, Chair, is just to make it easier for the CEO
Correct.
to have the availability of a debit card.
I agree.
I always say, when I advise nonprofits, I always say that a credit card is a better choice than a debit card, because if I went on a wild spending spree,
We could dispute it.
you can dispute it and you don't lose actual funds out of your bank account.
And a credit card, just like a debit card, we can request limits.
Yeah,
You can request limits on both, but
Yeah.
but
I
that's
think
my,
I think credit card is a better form of responsibility, because exactly, I don't anticipate Rose running down to buy
No.
20 pocketbooks. But we can dispute it in the long run. On a debit card, we could still take that avenue. I think it's a little more lengthy.
that's
I
fine.
think it's
correct.
always, you always have to do best practice, I mean,
Yeah.
no, I'm not
All
going
right,
to.
make it a credit card.
Okay, let's make it a credit card, okay? We'll bring it over into audit committee, refer it to audit committee for the 24th.
And which policy did you say, I'm sorry?
We're gonna use that under travel and discretionary funds.
Okay, got it.
Rose, under the, just to skip a little bit, we had, there's an appendix A in, which is supposed to name the banks that we're able to deal with, and at least in the draft, we didn't have any named banks.
I don't have that appendix on the
You don't have
policy.
that?
No.
All right, let me find it. Keep going
Yeah.
with something.
No,
So
go
the
ahead.
first-
What kind of wouldn't we need?
We can't deal with,
Which ones?
I can't think of what they're called, but we can't deal with Ulster Savings Bank and Rondout Savings Bank because they're not what is it, corporate bank, right?
They're not a bank,
But they tell us that. When I asked them about getting even a CD for under $250 there,
they're not a
They said
bank
they
that's
can't
able
do
to,
take
Have
public
tried-
funds.
take public funds,
Yeah.
is essentially.
Yeah, there's certain banks you can.
It's under the policy of our investment and deposit policy, which is going to audit. But if you turn to page 53, there's a section there that refers
To the appendix, yeah, it
actually
does.
page 58.
Yep,
It's supposed to list the institutions that were authorized to them. And every year when we have our reorganization meeting, what you would generally do.
we make the list of how much in each bank that we have.
So that would,
Okay,
would
so
go
we should
here.
update
so
that.
we should update that. I know we have a bank.
Okay.
Can we have a generic term so we don't have to keep changing it?
You can list as many banks as you want.
Yeah, but I don't want to list as many banks. If I put down, as long as they fall in compliance or just a general term, so we don't have to keep adding or deleting.
So like
What do you
FDIC,
think?
if it's FDIC
That's a legal
insurance
question.
up to FDIC,
It would be easier in FDIC insured bank. That's
okay.
any that aren't have to have collateral accounts, we
Yeah.
just say that, right?
An acceptable institution as per New York State
Right.
ADO.
Yeah, that makes, yeah.
Okay.
But it just, you know what, then you're not up and down every year.
So you just have to change the policy to reflect that, because the policy talks about banks in
Yep.
appendix A.
Yeah, we're gonna send the whole thing to audit too, but I wrote the
Everything's gotta
notes
go
so
in
we
there.
can bring it.
That audit's gonna be pretty busy those days.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be, everybody's gonna be busy.
So should we try to get through as many of the policies that we?
Yeah, there aren't that many now, I mean, we did
No.
through a couple. I
Let's,
think audio policy, I really wanted to say, that's irrelevant. Now, the first one is audio policy. We don't need an audio policy anymore, right?
No, because now we
Because
have,
now we have live stream.
Now we have
So
live
we're not-
stream.
I don't, we don't need a policy for live stream because it's just a law that we have to do,
it's
right?
mandated with the law, that's mandated.
Yeah, so
So,
we can just get rid of this.
yep, we could drop audio policy from this,
Compensation.
remove.
The next one is the background check goes to audit.
Background check goes to audit, code of ethics goes to audit, compensation policy.
It's
no one
two
here-
paragraphs, it's
no one here
easier.
gets paid for
Oh, shit.
Compensation policy.
And some of these policies are just directly from ABO.
Yeah.
So I could tell you if this one was, if you want me to look, but it's pretty, there's not
I-
much to
I-
say, right?
I
Just
mean,
don't
it's
get
pretty cut and
compensated.
dry, you shall serve without compensation. That's it.
I have no changes.
No changes.
I didn't have any.
May I make a suggestion, when you go to the full board on the audio policy,
Mm-hmm.
you probably should just have a vote that it's just.
I figured, I
just
wrote
take
down,
it
it would
off.
go to
Yeah,
the
well,
board to
Your
review it.
website and all that
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah, it's the governance's recommendation, right? But yeah, I wrote down the
So
ask the full
compensation,
board.
no change?
Yeah,
What was next?
defense and indemnification policy. Was that the one you thought needed better?
Is this meant to designate, it says the agency shall indemnify all members of the board. So in other words, the indemnification is the E&O policy that we have, right? Is that what that means?
Yes.
Why don't we just call it out as what it is as opposed to,
We could add it.
You could add it,
just add the words.
Yeah, we could add
errors
it.
and omissions.
Yeah, errors and omissions.
Yep.
Or is that what it's called, Joe? Errors and omissions, or is it the public
Or the directors and officers? Which
directors
one
and
is it?
officers?
Well, yeah, they're usually sort of
Are they
two
different?
sides of the same.
Can we just look up, in our insurance policy, look up what the official title is in that
Yeah, and then
policy?
reflect what it
And
says
just
in that.
put it in here,
Yeah,
because we have two policies, one we don't think we need anymore, and the other one is the big one, so.
one we even don't have.
Housing projects.
Next one, oh, I'm sorry, enforcement is going to audit,
Enforcement goes to audit.
fee schedule guidelines goes to audit,
Mhm.
and then,
Housing projects.
Housing.
Ooh-wee.
Okay, let's address housing. So, I know we set this policy back in, when did we approach this with the old board? Over 2 years ago?
yeah, I think, was it a year, 2 years ago? 2 years, it was before me,
Yeah.
so yeah, about 2 years.
And I have to say, at that time, you know, we discussed opening the housing project policy terms, and we never got around to, you know, once again, not reviewing something. I asked council to look into a couple things for me on the housing policy, with different IDAs in the area. You know, I also don't have to preach to anybody in here, you know, with unprecedented times, you know, nothing is business as usual. And this board should continue to serve its clients the best that this board can in moving ahead. And by providing any other new avenues we have, anything that could benefit Ulster County itself and the Ulster County residents. With that, there's a large cry out there currently under this administration up here on this, you know, through the county and even in the city of Kingston and surrounding areas for a housing crisis. We all know low-income housing, senior housing, you know, extending continuing care, that kind of concept. With that, I approached council and I asked them if they could look into broadening the stroke where we still don't lose control to anybody that's, for the lack of better terms, unscrupulous coming along to abuse it. I did ask them for that. Did you get a copy of that? No.
No.
I can read what I kind of came up with. The housing policy would read as follows, what we have, with the addition to a subsection E, to read it basically notwithstanding anything herein to the contrary, the agency may consider granting financial assistance to any housing project or any mixed-use project that includes a housing or residential component that has received prior approval from the governing boards of Ulster County and of each town, village, city, and school district in the housing project in which it's located.
So approving housing if it's okay with where, if the people
All the taxing jurisdictions
are on board.
are on board. would be on board, they would
But
have to be
still
on
at-
board.
It's still at our discretion.
It would be, that's something I'd like to add to it, I want to throw that around in governance. I thought about adding something to the fact that it would be the sole discretion of the board.
What you're doing now is you're creating something with checks and balances, which is what you need. Look, you want it, then you have to vote for it and put it out there.
Correct.
And at that point, it falls to us, but we can't arbitrarily make a unilateral decision and say, oh, no, we're okay, we don't care what everyone else says. So what people are looking for is what they're getting. They're getting to be an active component of the decision.
Yeah, I think you weren't saying do it if they don't want it. We were saying even if they want it, we still have the discretion.
What-
You're saying,
What I'm pointing out is that we don't arbitrarily have the power to just do it because we want.
oh, right, yeah,
No.
yeah. No,
We
in my
need to
point,
have
yeah, I
the
don't think
checks
that's
and
what we were
balances.
saying, yeah.
And even if they're burning down the building, it falls in our lap to make a decision.
Yeah, I think I wonder if the addition of the word sole discretion
And
still
it's,
gives us some discretion.
here's I have one concern about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I may. All the decisions of the IDA are discretionary decisions. And I worry, as an attorney, I worry about adding language like that in with a policy to create the notion that that wasn't always in your purview. You know what I mean? Like,
So you're suggesting we have that anyway?
you have it anyway, and I will say one other thing, and I think, Mr. Chairman, if you could let me know, I think what we drafted it starts with the word may, right? Notwithstanding.
It does say,
May
notwithstanding,
consider.
right, the agency may consider,
Right.
which still has a lot of bite.
It's got bite, and it implies discretion, and I think what really the heart of the policy is, it basically says to an applicant who wants to do this kind of project, don't knock on our door until you know the taxing jurisdictions are satisfied. And, because it says, now you could come in and present the project, but we're not taking a vote until you come back with
The
resolutions
other
from these
interesting
taxing
thing to me is
jurisdictions.
that housing is, and you can verify, housing is legal for us to do. There's nothing barring us from doing it.
Okay,
No,
so
It's
okay.
how do we well, not how do we prevent, are we saying then that single-family homes, that's housing, that a project involving single-family homes
Only if it's
is
also-
included in this policy?
Well, I don't know if you're ever gonna get like on the spec houses, you know,
Yeah.
you're never gonna have that coming your way.
But for instance, let's go back to, I know that I was not a big proponent of doing away with anything entirely, which the prior board did that. But, when I threw a suggestion up there, if you took the former IBM property, we'll say, and Amazon decided to come in, and they wanted to build a small village, people weren't gonna be really domiciled, they were in, they were out. So there's typically workforce housing, and you create 20 units of single housing. What are you gonna do, tell them no? I mean, yeah, you could tell them no, but the housing that's involved there, okay?
So that would be a commercial project, is the verbiage in here related to commercial?
It doesn't say that, but it is in the statute.
Right,
I
New
don't
York
think
State
we
law.
want to get into. It's in the law, right,
I think
it's
we're
in the
looking
law,
at-
so we can revert back to that. This thing right here gives everybody here, coverage on a good project, just like Jimmy just stated, okay? And
My position
that-
is
and
it's
also-
also tied to something.
falling back on what Joe said, at the end of the day, do not come in front of this board until you've done your homework and you know this is what everybody needs. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but you know what, I read stuff too, and I know you're up to date on all your numbers, and I rely on you for a lot of that, okay? But, I was looking and they said, the shortage of affordable housing right now to the economy, just in the United States, I'm not talking about, they said it's over $2 trillion a year and lower wages and productivity. So without affordable housing, families have no opportunity to increase earnings, causing a shortage in the GDP growth. And that's a fact, and that's a fact. So, something here where we're coming through our whole COVID-19, times, and there's a lot of strain out there, for housing. And I think everybody here can agree on that, the craziness with the housing going on right now. I mean, you know, low-income people are never going to get a bidding war to get a place to live.
You can't, bidding wars are outrageous right now.
You can't do it. You cannot do it, you know what I'm saying?
Houses
we're
are going
just-
for double.
This is a policy that would address something.
We're hogtied by whether it was right, wrong, or whatever at the time the action we took as a prior board.
We didn't allow any exceptions,
Well,
was what happened.
you know,
That is
and
correct.
when there was,
This broadens
This
your,
broadens the exception.
when there
That's
was
correct.
a
But
bunch of
carefully.
exceptions,
and
that
very
New
carefully.
York State allowed.
Very
you.
carefully.
You know, we're not recreating the wheel here. We're addressing something and making it more manageable and giving this board more opportunity
Correct.
to help with economic development.
I think where a municipality says, look, this is part of a larger plan,
Yeah.
which is what they would do, this is part of a larger plan that we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
That allows for housing at a variety of different price points. Well, that's music to my ears, yeah, okay, we can help with that, let's see if we can help.
It's a new avenue, Rick, to address the concerns.
And when I talk about commitment, what I mean is someone comes in and they says, hey, look, we know that they're gonna be bringing in 200 people, so we have to build some housing in this area. You know, and a commitment to work with the end user to place their employees there, you do the best you can. Look, this whole thing is a roll of the dice.
Let's
But
do
we
it.
need to
There's
control the dice.
There's enough discretion.
Mm-hmm.
Good, clear thinking.
You're pulling in everybody who has a stake in it, all the stakeholders, and saying, hey, what do you want? You're at the table, you want a place at the table? We're not denying or approving without your input.
Every successful economic development scenario includes
Has to.
workforce and affordable housing.
You can't drive an hour to get to a job that's paying, but hey, you gotta suck it all up and
You know,
drive
Rick,
back for it.
in construction, we have a saying, when you're able to work close to home, it becomes real money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real money. And that real money, actually, that's a whole trickle-down theory to spending money at, you know, be it a restaurant or a local store or something. Some people have to decide whether or not they're paying rent that month or
Council,
if they're buying groceries.
with the thoughts that are being expressed here, do you see anything that's an impediment or a stumbling point?
I do not. I think what you've done here is you've taken a type of project that you would have concerns about and said to an applicant, you go tell us that the people we're most concerned with protecting are okay, then come in and talk to us about whether this project also helps economic development. And that's where your
So
discretion
sure,
lies.
you work hand in hand with council and your committee to create language that best represents and doesn't put us in a bad way.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Okay. So I recommend that we bring that to the board on the 12th.
So we'll get a resolution put together, and
Okay.
then, I'll do a red line for the
But the
board.
objective of doing this, the way you've crafted the two of you, thank you for doing that. The way you've crafted it, it's a proactive and positive objective. Yeah, there may be somebody who tries to slip something by us, but that's why it says we may. Plus they have 3 other hoops to jump through.
Yeah, that's right, which won't be easy, right? Remember
So
too,
if
this,
everybody agrees this is good for the local economy, who are we to say, nah?
Correct.
Makes sense.
I like
You know, what time do we have there, Rose?
Yeah, I have a 1 o'clock
Yeah.
radio show with the chamber for the
Let's,
so.
I'll tell you what,
well,
Cousin Brucey?
I suggested that with the housing policy, at that point, we adjourn the governance meeting,
We gotta go to CRC
Um,
quickly.
and then we go to the UCCRC.
it.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And I'll second.
12:02, right.
I vote yes.
A little bit of
I vote
notoriety,
yes.
Rose,
I vote
you
yes.
gotta run out of here like you're on fire.
Did
I
I?
like how she said it on TV too.
That's not TV.
She only like it, she goes, it's just radio.
No, no, but it's pre-recorded.
You covered a lot of
I
ground
just
here
didn't
so
want to be
far.
late to
Did
the
good.
appointment.
Yeah.
Did you go to the CRC
Good
yet?
stuff.
Good stuff. I have
Thanks
CRC
for
stuff.
that.
You know what, there's a
An iron
mood in the
shortage,
room
Jimmy.
of, let's get some stuff done, guys.
I'm good.
So same path, not repeat.
Chair, do these policies mirror what we've already done?
Wait, hold on a second. Oh, you're just asking off the record.
Are we?
Yeah, but can you, stop the,
Get it off.
because we gotta stop and start again.
Okay. Do these
One
policies
second,
mirror
guys.
I mean, what's coming under the CRC?
Yeah, basically, this is gonna move real quick. Yeah. This is it, right here, we